Okay, good evening. Thank you very much for coming to our special public hearing for a possible solar moratorium. Please stand for the pledge to the flag.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening. Okay, so for tonight, we'll only be talking about the solar moratorium. And if you have any questions or comments about anything else, please feel free to email us, but we need to keep to this topic for this evening. Tonight, we will be considering a solar moratorium. This moratorium would be for a limited time in order to allow us to prepare properly to consider solar projects carefully, knowledgeably, and responsibly. During this time, we will fact find, educate ourselves, our town committee members, and the general public. Secondarily, we will review the solar law, enhancing it if necessary. And we will identify areas where solar will be allowed and where it would be advisable. Lastly, we would consider taxation. We have to prepare to review each solar project carefully, knowledgeably, and responsibly, because once a project is built, it cannot be taken back. That being said, we will be preparing. I just want to note before we go any further, there were a number of people who emailed us with differing viewpoints on solar and on the moratorium. And we have read all the emails and I've responded to some, but the ones I haven't gotten to yet, I will get to. But we will be reading all of them. So for those of you on video that emailed us but couldn't be here this evening, you are still getting heard. So we will read, thank you, the public notice rather than the whole thing. Thank you. Thank you, Deborah. So the legal notice. Public notice is hereby given that it has been presented to the town board of the town of Estill, New York, proposed local law B of the year 2024 entitled Local Law Placing a Temporary Moratorium on Approvals Regarding Solar Array Farms. Please take further notice that the environmental significance of said proposed local laws will be reviewed by the Vestal Town Board of the Town of Vestal Incident 2, and as a part of said public hearing. Copies of each said proposed local law are available for review at the Town of Vestal Clerk's office. Therefore, pursuant to statute, the Town Board of the Town of Vestal will be holding a public hearing on the aforesaid local law at 6 p.m. on May 13, 2024 at the Vestal Town Hall, 605 Vestal Parkway West, Vestal, New York. At that time, all interested persons will be heard. Thank you, Deborah, for the public notice. Okay, so thank you for coming this evening. So, like I said, for those of you that are not here this evening but did email us, we have heard you as well. And on the table is a one-year moratorium for the reasons that we mentioned, to be able to prepare properly to consider solar farms. I know that we have residents that would like solar farms right away and have been waiting for a long time in trying to prepare to have them. However, duly and carefully, we've gone over everything that we need to look at in order to consider each solar farm project, and we do not feel that we are prepared. But I want to hear, and the board would like to hear what you have to say before we make any final decisions. So we move on to the public. So just some reminders, please. Residents only, but we do want to hear from every resident if you are here and want to participate. We do ask that you be respectful to everybody in the room. We do ask that you keep your comments to 3 minutes. We do have a clock as a reminder. Hopefully it's working, just so that you can make sure that you get to say everything that you want to say within the time frame. And we do ask that you only speak once. And maybe a follow-up question if that's appropriate. That would be fine as well. But we want to give everybody the opportunity to. And we want everybody to be heard tonight. So if you could just say your name and if you could come up to the speaker, because everything, it is being videotaped. And the biggest request that we have for people who watch the videos is they want to hear the questions because otherwise they don't understand what the answers are. So does anybody have a question or a comment? Okay, yeah, comment is fine. Mhm. Absolutely. Please go up to the microphone and just say your name and that you live in Bastrop.
My name's Roger Nielsen. I've been here before. At the present time, I'm positive toward all of the solar stuff. I agree with what everybody has portrayed, that everything should be in place before we do it. And I think that New York State has a great guideline book for this, which is in NYSERDA. I don't know if all of you have looked at that yet or anything, but I brought the town board members and yourself a copy.
Mhm.
And it even discusses the municipal solar procurement toolkit and agricultural, residential, all that. And like I said, in case, and I had to keep looking it up for a while, in case you need to know what that stands for, the NYSERDA. It is the New York State Energy Research and Development Authority. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you.
I've got it. Okay.
Oh, absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, yes, ma'am.
Hello, I'm Heather Matthews, and I'm in favor of the proposed solar farm on the Yablonsky property that borders my land. I have 5 acres that borders their property. Here are a few facts as I understand them about the project. The proposed array encompasses 40 acres. That's out of 124 acres of private land. Water drainage and runoff is built into the design. There's no chemical defoliants that will be used in any way. They're going to mow and trim a couple times a year as is needed. The solar farm must comply to government guidelines and inspection regularly. The array site is over 300 feet away from the nearest home. That's an entire football field. That's a long way, okay? Renewable energy is a necessity going forward. We must be preparing for the future. Our futures depend on it. Future generations depend on it. Vestal has the opportunity here to be a leader. I'd like to think our town has the foresight to be progressive. We have a wealth of research and innovation right here at Vestal's own Binghamton University that supports the need for renewable energy. Most folks are for advancement in technology until it's in their own backyard. But you have to remember the changes to the Yablonsky private land. The last meeting I attended, there were a lot of voiced concerns. Drainage, chemical use, water contamination, all valid concerns. But there was also a lot of supposition and half-truths, I thought, and even a little fear-mongering. Renewable energy is coming. It has to. I think we should be proactive. And I think our questions should be answered by the developer of the project. I think that that person or that entity should be speaking here, either this evening or at another meeting, because they're the ones that can answer the questions. So it makes sense to me that we invite them and we get them here to speak to us. And as far as the moratorium goes, being a landowner myself and maybe wanting some use of my own facility at some point, if I'm told I can't, does that devalue my property and would my taxes be reduced during the moratorium? That would be a question I'd like to know. Thank you.
Thank you. You are not a resident. You do not, residents only can speak, but any resident has the right to speak. And okay, it is a public hearing for residents and all those that have a, yep. But what I do want to say is that the solar companies will have a voice in all of the planning and they will be heard fully, but this is what the residents want and how to proceed forward. And so therefore we have to, you know, the residents are the ones who have a stake in this. So the residents have a say. Does anybody, any resident have a question or comment? Yes.
Brian Harrington, 569 Tracy Creek Road, 588 Tracy Creek Road. As far as the committee goes, it appears in the new solar law, if it's revised, one of the concerns is that we have a decreased. We can have noise pollution to nearby non-participating property. You can have soil surface water and groundwater contamination. There's nothing in this current solar law that says that they can't use chemicals really. So, I mean, it's got to be called out that you can't use chemicals. If they were to sell it, would the next guy be able to use chemicals? You just don't know. Potential for soil and water, groundwater contamination, concern that contamination could occur over decades to come, perhaps 10, 20 years, or even after decommissioning of the solar farm. If this occurred, how is the affected property owners protected for that? What provisions protect private well and groundwater from contamination? What cost could periodic water testing be? I know a guy, it was costing him $1,500 for a test 15 years ago. So if you test every year, what are we looking at? $40,000 that a homeowner would have to pay? What would be the course of action in the event contamination did occur? What would a lawsuit cost a non-participating homeowner? 5, what products could be used? Would they be toxic? Herbicides, pesticides, cleaning solutions, dust suppressants, et cetera, et cetera. 6, solar farms can create heat islands. You can get between 5 to 7 degrees higher in temperature around the perimeter of the solar farms. 7, loss of wildlife habitat. The array fence prohibits bear, deer, et cetera, from normal movement. They could actually funnel the bears into adjacent property through your yard. You're taking out 42 acres. The other thing is you're talking 42 acres of an array, 55 acres of trees, but then if they have notes that give them special rights to cut trees further than that, you could be up to 70 acres. For example, the Harrington Solar one, if they were to go 250 feet from the array fence, that could be another 16, 17 acres of timbering, or not timbering, but cutting trees. And it's not really shown on the plans at 55 acres. So it would be more than that. You've got hail damage, fire hazards. Is there exposure to EM radiation? Setbacks, as far as they don't even consider right now with the law about private water wells, septic systems, and where your home is to the property line. And as far as zoning, you know, why is rural residential zoning allowed for solar farms without consideration for how many homes could be negatively impacted within 1 mile of such a facility? And then we have creeks, rivers, primary aquifers, and private water wells. There's solar facilities that could be impacted. Yep, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Residents only, I thought. You live in Appalachian.
Yeah, I own 125 acres
Well,
on
you're not a
Rockville Road.
resident. You're not a resident. You're not.
I own
She's-
125 acres.
She's a
on
property
Rockville Road.
owner though, so she has a stake as well. So yes, but it is her property.
I own house and I pay taxes on that property.
Okay, please.
Excuse me. I'm Sally
Property owner.
Yablonsky, property owner,
Thank you.
Ross Hill Road, Vestal. I've attended 95% of Vestal Town Board meetings over the past year and a half, and I've heard quite a variety of statements regarding solar. Now, and perhaps scaring the solar farms will be going up. If any of our developers were speak. If any of our developers were able to speak in the town meetings, they would be able to clarify how prospective properties are chosen. The 3 applications that you have already received are probably 3 prime spots that were sought out by developers over the past 5 years. There are many factors that developers look at when seeking out solar farm locations. So in reality, not many parcels are actually highly favorable for solar farms. What's not being heard, as just one example of a key factor, is that specific electric connections need to be readily available and close to town. It is far too expensive to have long-distance lines to connect to the power grid. If solar farms are placed far away from town, now the residents will not be happy with the complex power lines that would need to be constructed and highly visible along the full paths. I can speak for our potential solar farm, and electric grid capability is essentially in place at the point of our property. Our developer has offered his services and expertise to have a public question and answer session for town residents, not just for my project, but for solar in general, as they have implemented solar farms across New York State and the Northeast. I'm sure other developers would be willing to do the same as well. It is a shame that this new administration has not tried to learn from their expertise. Please know, solar will provide additional revenue to both the town and county. Residents will be able to subscribe for credits on their electric bills at no cost. I am requesting that the town please consider grandfathering the 3 projects that have been applied for under the current law, where applicants will be agreeable to stipulations requested per each application. We understand you want a new moratorium, and that is great disservice to us property owners and our developers who have already invested a great deal of money and a few years of work while moratoriums were in place. It is also a disservice to the community based on the cited benefits and potential tax relief. Asking for volunteers for a solar committee and comprehensive plan committee, choosing individuals who are against solar upfront should not be placed on the committee. No one will ever be able to agree and move forward. Perhaps they are only volunteering their time to stop progress. Renewable energy is the future. My property has been in my family for more than 200 years, and since 2020, the combined taxes have nearly quadrupled for various reasons for what they were. It is not affordable to maintain the property anymore. I wanted to keep the property for my future generations, but unless we can offset the continually increases taxes, something needs to be done to offset this. In summary, I hope the board continues to move forward, and I certainly request they not pass a moratorium for at least the 3 property owners who have already applied. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, would anybody else like to speak?
Hi, I'm Lori Ellis, Tracy Creek Road. I think I like solar. I just don't want it in forests and I don't want it close to people's homes. I think we have lots of rooftops and I'm say rooftops, not forests. I did make this old fashioned audio visual tool. And up here are the dots, blue dots are from the new mapping that New York State put out at NYSERDA. And those are people's homes. And the red part I drew copying from the application for the project. It's really close and it is surrounded by people's homes. Over here is Ross Park itself, and Ross Park is a wetland check zone according to the state DEC. And then over here, 1 mile away from the site, is a DEC rare and endangered designation for plants and animals. And plants and animals don't stay still. And so DEC also says on their website that just because they haven't mapped an area doesn't mean there isn't something important there. I would like to see solar on rooftops. I would like to see it, you know, along the Vestal Parkway. If you look at all those rooftops and all those parking lots that could have canopies, that to me would fit our goal without doing this. Not just this project, but I just looked at this one. The developer is from Massachusetts, according to the application. According to the application, they would, and their name is ClearPath. And to me, subtracting 53 acres of forest is a clear path. And they would add 52 acres of meadow. And they would encroach slightly, they say, on a wetland area right here. There's also a topographical map that shows slopes larger than 15 degrees, which they say on their application. I don't know how many degrees. There's quite a lot of skinny lines close together there. It's not a good site, although I understand people's concerns why they might want to not have the burden of this. I wish we could make it into a park or something else and make everybody happy, but I don't know. Jensen Road is project is from California developer, and the Maryland developer is Route 26. And finally, I want to say there's grants and low-cost loans for residential solar installations, and they're elegant and they're inclusive, and people could get the benefit. But we need to get the word out on those programs. Thank you.
Okay, would anybody else like to speak?
Tom McCartney. I'm representing the Vestal Fire District, and we want to make sure that our concerns are addressed during this plan to develop a new solar policy. We do understand that installing these solar systems is an increasingly attractive way to reduce the cost and environmental impact using electric energy. However, these systems can have an impact on safety, facility occupants, electrical workers, and emergency responders. Adequate fire protection concerns must be addressed prior to permit issuance for solar facilities. Fixed fire protection systems are the best means of fire suppression. The generally accepted standard, according to the NFPA, must be complied with, meeting New York State Uniform Building Code. Fixed fire protection is always the first choice of fire protection. Facility access must be provided for firefighting apparatus to approach safely to gain access to the hazard presented at the solar facilities. Consideration for adequate firefighting resources must be established. If specific technology for safe manual fire suppression, this is firefighters gaining access to the facility and putting out a fire, We must consider that. If there is equipment to be purchased, which we currently don't have equipment to fight a fire at a solar farm, that cost of that equipment should not be on the back of the taxpayer. It should be on the back of the facility owner. And it may require special equipment to be purchased that we currently don't have. Specific training will be provided to emergency services organizations that will have to respond to the incident at a solar facility. Facility owner will provide the training necessary to make sure the first responders are trained to mitigate the hazard presented. The cost of special training should be on the back of the facility owner. Training should be provided annually. Emergency power disconnects should be established to be installed to deactivate the hazardous energy and assure that it's abated. Adequate distance for separation of the energy hazards with natural vegetation should be provided to prevent uncontrolled wildfires. Hazardous materials and hazardous waste at a whole solar facility must be managed according to New York State DEC regulations and US EPA regulations. Any costs related to response or hazard mitigation at a solar facility will be charged back to the facility owners. All fire district equipment, decontamination costs will be charged the facility owner. Replacement of contaminated fire district equipment will be charged the facility owner. We'd like all of these items considered as you develop a new law. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And thank you for all your work. Okay, would anybody else like to speak? Yes, ma'am.
Good evening. Thank you for allowing everyone to speak. My name is Amy Belchunas.
Are you a resident of Vestal?
I own property on 26.
Okay, thank you.
I was going to come here and talk about pretty much what I talked about the last time we did this, but then I got thinking about my generational ties to this community. My great-grandfather owned property and a business right down here on Front Street, Brown Real Estate. My grandparents, both on both sides, owned property on Torrance and LaGrange. My parents met at Vestal High School. My father bought the property on 26. When he passed away, he left it to us. We've been paying taxes for Vestal for 4 generations. My father bought the property in hopes that someday it would bring financial help to his children and possibly his grandchildren. We've had plenty of opportunities and many, many offers. We've done a lot of research as well as the NYSERDA things that we've looked at to see the pros and cons. We feel that there's a lot of pros for the solar energy, not only for the community, for my family, but for the state. The revenue that the projects are bringing in can go towards things like the fires, the new equipment for the fire department, parks, and anything else that the town decides that it would be beneficial for the town. I have very little health left in me due to spinal issues. I only have a couple of more years of work. I'm already determined disabled, and I work as much as I can. This solar will be able to feed me in a couple of years. Otherwise, I will be financially in ruins. Not just me, but my children. We got this land in hopes that it would help our family. I also agree that I think that the developers, all of them, I think there's 3 maybe, should be allowed to speak and tell them or tell us what they know and let us ask them questions. I also think that we should be grandfathered in, and the 2 years that the memorial was done, all this research should have been done then. And what I understood is it was done then, and ours got approved, and now it's taken away from us again. So again, I'm grateful for you to let us speak, but I'm really requesting at least grandfather in, work with the solar companies. My particular solar company has very adamantly said he's willing to work, amend some of the things if you want him to amend it. But we need this solar. New York State is going, every state is going, Cayuga County, Maine, they have them all around the schools. And if it wasn't safe, I doubt very much that they'd have them around the schools. I appreciate you letting me speak. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, sir?
William Gary, 409 Tracy Creek Road, Vestal. I just want to ask one simple question. Is the town board willing to look into getting an environmental lawyer to step in and help rebuild the solar law? No offense to Mr. Reynolds, but it seems that these solar farms and the environment should be what the lawyer's area of expertise should be when you're looking at this. Now, second point, as far as the water flow situation that's being denied as being a problem, when you look at the plans of the Harrington Solar Project, you will see they're not a solid berm. They have breaks in them where what will end up happening is if you imagine your roof gets rained on, and that's the solars and the compacted ground. Then you have the eave trough, which catches it, and now it dumps. That's the concern that I have when it's going to end up in my yard and the rest of the people on the lower side of Tracy Creek. So you'll see it in the plans. It's not a solid berm, and it's, from what I've seen, it's a 1-foot berm. You think that's going to hold back 3 feet of water? And it doesn't even continue on the north end to even form a stop. And that is where I asked about the hydrologic and the hydraulic study. So, you know, all right, thank you very much.
Okay, would anybody else like to speak? Thank you.
Tim Rathman, Ross Hill Road. Maybe I missed it. Who is the developer going to be for this? I'd like to check into them. And what is the name of your company? Okay.
Please don't address
Okay.
the audience. Please
Will we
address the
be
board.
given that information? I do want to know that.
We can look it up and get back to you. Yeah,
Okay. that would
sure,
be good.
because the projects were submitted, so we do have them on record.
And then the other
Mhm.
question I have is, this is one gentleman put a facility owner. Will they be paying taxes on this land?
Well, that's what we need to consider, because right now, any solar project coming through by New York State tax law 487, the assessments would be frozen and could not be increased for 15 years. In other words, they would not be taxed for 15 years. However, the town has the right to opt out or to offer pilot programs in lieu of taxation. So there are different options that need to be considered. So that would be on the table as well. But right now, automatically, they would not be taxed. So,
Yeah.
Folks, please wait your turn to
Well,
talk.
there's another question too, but concerning all of that. NYSEG has to, at their cost, hook up to solar parks, the solar panels, is what my understanding. NYSEG will then pass the charges along to us. I mean, I'd like to know more about the solar company, their responsibility. What happens if something fails? I'd like to know their history. So, be good to know.
thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, would anybody else like to speak? Sir? Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Reno, I did promise him first. Just, I think, well,
Folks,
okay,
please
but you're next
remember
up. I
when people are
apologize.
speaking
I really apologize.
that they have the floor. Please do not.
My
speak.
name's Alan Sheridan.
Mhm.
I live on Ross Hill Road. I've been a resident there for 59 years. And as I spoke last week, I don't know if you took notes about my concerns about this, and some of the concerns have been spelled out tonight. And the one gentleman did an overall explanation of what he thought. Now, the other thing I'd like to know, where are them panels made? What is the poison inside them panels that they should break with hailstorms or stuff like that? Where would they go? Into the ground. And as the other gentleman said, they would head down his way and into the other homes and wells as well. The other thing is, as the other gentleman said, NYSEG will have to hook these up. they're not gonna do it for free. Is the company going to pay for it? Or is the residents going to pay for it? That's what I would like to know. And will the taxes around them solar farms decrease the property value or increase the property value? I'd like to know that. So you could tell me.
Well, if I knew those questions, the answers to those questions, I might feel comfortable considering the solar projects coming through, but I don't yet, but I will before I feel comfortable considering them properly.
Thank you. for
So-
your time.
Thank you. Mr. Reno, I'm so sorry. I've been promising you, please.
Rob Reno, Jensen Road, Vestal. We do have the application in for a solar farm. That's the company from California. I know what you thought about being grandfathered in, but I'd like to ask that the three projects be grandfathered in. I just want it on the record. And I know my company, our company, the developer, offered money to hire experts, and they'll pay the full shot, and you can get anybody you want, and up or down, whether just look at the project, all the projects, and they'll pay for it. So you wouldn't have to wait for a grant. And I know that's on the table, but
Thank you very much.
but the other thing, I did email the board, and I appreciate that you'll get back to me about it. I did talk to Columbia Law School. They have a project, a whole program that'll help even communities and people if they run into problems trying to develop solar. It's a renewable, I forgot what they called it, but it's a renewable system that they have for law initiatives. I botched that up, but it's in the email. But the other thing is, you mentioned that only the residents have a stake, not the developers. I know for like our company has put in hundreds of thousands of dollars and God knows how many man hours, to get the application to the point where it is. And I know their company has also. So I think they also have a stake in the projects, not just the residents. So that's it.
I appreciate it. And thank you for your email. I will get back to you. And does anybody else have anything to say? Any questions or comments? Yes.
Good evening. I'm Peter Yablonsky, property owner on Ross Hill Road. For the record, I'm not in favor of yet another moratorium, as I believe there is a reasonable base solar law in place, and the town has the ability to create necessary permitting adjustments for projects to move forward. I also believe that review of submitted applications shed light on situations where the law may be deficient, which may be otherwise not obvious or known, and it's already been reviewed. The planning board is experienced and trained, and we can trust them to do the job required to properly vet these conditions. I feel I represent a balance of the rights of the property owner and concerns of technology and the community. I have attended many town meetings and have heard many, many comments and concerns, but no real offering of credible backing information. To any such issues, the board has not let any credible resources such as the involved developers speak or respond to any such statements or concerns, or perhaps hold a question and answer period. These developers have significant knowledge and experience and can be a great source of information. And remember, they must abide by the law. You may call them salesmen, which is what they are to a degree, but they are working on behalf of the property owners and investing millions into the Vestal community. Do we not need or want investment in our community? As timing has it, the board is facing questions and backlash regarding increased property assessments. Operating expenses continue to increase based on inflation. Therefore, it is also likely that tax rates will increase. If you do nothing, meaning nothing to increase the town revenues, taxes will most certainly increase. With the latest solar projects, the town is turning a blind eye to potential new revenue. This would be in the form of payments from the solar installations and assumed additional tax levies on those properties. As with taxes, utility costs typically do not decrease. Solar provides a mechanism to counteract electricity generation costs with utility credits to all community subscribers, approximately 10% of their electric generation bill, and adding service resiliency as solar installations directly feed the local grid. We have to be concerned about preserving our environment. As I do, many people like driving around and seeing the greenery. They need to realize that someone owns and pays taxes, insurances, maintenance on those properties. And nothing says that greenery disappears. It may be altered, but with a well-planned installation will result in a responsible solution. Things have to be looked at with proper balance and a progressive outlook. With further moratorium, the town is going in reverse. Despite the town having developed into a very vital and rounded community, it is not on the forefront of continued progress in this area and is cheating both the property owners and community of benefits. Again, I ask that you consider not instituting a new moratorium, but let due process, proper vetting, review by trained resources, and dissemination of credible information take its course. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Okay, it's okay. Mhm.
My name is Stephanie Harrington and I live at 569 Tracy Creek Road. I would like to bring up the sign again. This is the project site.
Thank
This
you.
is my home.
Mhm.
It covers 2 sides of my house. We have get-togethers on one side, it's all hemlock on one side. All the foliage on a hemlock are at the top. You can see all the way through the woods now, not all the trees.
Stanley, you have to adjust the board. You have to
Yeah.
adjust the board.
And can you speak to the microphone so the people on tape could hear you as well? Because,
Thank you.
thank you.
How would you like to live there? Would you like to drink my water in 5, 10 years? What am I about my 2.5-year-old
Stanley,
grandson?
you have to adjust.
Or my 9-month-old granddaughter?
Stanley, please adjust the board, not the audience. Please look forward.
Yeah.
Please look forward.
We
Thank
want
you.
to hear what you have to say, though. So
I'm
please.
sure you
just
can
let
hear
us-
me, even though I'm talking to the audience.
Well, but you need to be talking to
I
us.
think you all need to think about this. This is my life. I want to stay here for the rest of my life. I am not even from this area. I'm from the Adirondacks. Could you see a solar farm in the middle of the Adirondacks? It's all protected. We all protect our lands. Why would you want to have something like this when there's all these people with homes? They're all concerned. Please consider this. I am for the moratorium and I hope you all really do your work and help us.
Thank you very much. Okay, would anybody else like to speak? Okay, just Mr. Mooney first and then Mr. Myers.
Yeah, my name is Tom Mooney. I live on Rockwell Road, Vestal. I hadn't planned on speaking, so I'm not real organized here. But I'm a very strong proponent of property rights and that's a real conflict for me in this whole issue because I think a person that owns his land ought to be able to do what he wants to do with his land. I also think that a person who owns his land, shouldn't have to look out and see 40 acres of solar equipment if he doesn't want to, okay? Both those people have rights, okay? And I honestly am not clear on exactly how I stand. I did learn tonight about the fire issue, okay? I didn't think about that. I was aware in the research I have done about some issues with pollution. Now, again, whether these current developers are using the same technology, I don't know, okay? But I know there's been issues that have been brought up in other areas, in other towns, other states, okay, with chemical pollution and so forth, okay? My heart goes out to people who are trying to use this as a means of their survival, okay? And being able to pay their taxes, that should never happen, okay? You buy land, your great-great-grandfather buys land, okay? And suddenly the town can take it away, okay? Because you can't divvy up your tax. That should never happen. But I'm not sure that's necessarily a solar only issue. As a matter of fact, it isn't, okay? So it's an issue for another time, I guess. But because of this contrast that I have, and yes, people have been waiting to do this, okay? I'm very strong proponent of the moratorium. I think we need to stop and look much harder again, just the fire issue that coming up today and those ideas, okay? And again, the property tax issue, okay? These people are going to be exempt from property taxes. The people who sit at their window and look out at their neighbor's property a couple 100 feet away, okay? Their values of their houses are not going to decrease. They certainly are, okay? We need another moratorium. That's my opinion.
Thank you very much. Okay, Mr. Myers, did you want to speak?
Just 2 seconds for the board. At a public hearing, all the public shall be allowed to speak, and there is no definition of who public is other than those in attendance.
Okay, would anybody else like to speak? Okay, so, sir?
My name is Dave Freeland. I'm resident on Ross Hill Road, new to the Vestal area in the last 5-6 years. New, but not new to the Binghamton area. I'm not anti-solar. I'm not pro-solar. I think that the idea behind solar is great. What I do see though is from the aesthetic issues with the neighbors. My son recently bought a house over on Endicott. He has a solar farm right next to him, done in the last 4 or 5 years. We go up there hunting and it is pitiful to look at, just to look at the solar panels. But from the aspect of the clear cutting that was done next to his property, he owns 95 acres, but the clear cutting affected the hunting up there. Also, if you go up to the solar farm, all around the fence around the solar farm is all the scrap lumber left there by wherever the developer was. We don't need to see that in our neighborhood. The other piece of that is my in-laws live in Steuben County. They had windmills put up in their area. The roads were basically destroyed by the equipment to put those windmills in. Is there anything being addressed for Ross Hill Road, Tracy Creek Road, for the damage that the equipment does? In Steuben County, the companies were required to repave the roads. So there are effects that occur within the neighborhood that if they're left unchecked, will be a decrease in the value of people's homes in that area. So would appreciate if the town looked at that and made sure that everything's put back in place. Thanks for your time.
Thank you very much. Okay, would anybody else like to speak?
George.
We said only one speaker because otherwise we might be here all night. But if you want to speak to us afterwards, you're more than welcome to, okay? Sir?
Can I address the board, not about the board? I feel like as a board, you guys are doing a great disservice to your community, not just developers, and not hearing the developers. Because I have heard
many mistruths,
Okay.
misinformation.
But you're not a resident, right?
But my company has invested in your community. I'm just saying that you guys are doing a great disservice to your community and not hearing the truth behind what the concerns are.
Okay,
They are valid.
sir, with all due respect, this is a conversation of residents only for this evening. I hear you, but there's a time and a place to talk to developers. But this is a time and a place to talk where we as a community, we as residents decide what we're going to do right now and how we handle the whole issue of solar. Certainly, the town board has been and will be in conversations with the solar companies when it is appropriate. But that's not what on the what is on the table for tonight. Well, right now, this issue is on the table for tonight. But yes, when we start to consider solar farms, yes, they will absolutely have a place in the whole presentation and the informational and all of that as well.
Should we be informed before we make a decision?
Well, right now, it's the board's decision on whether we enter into moratorium. We're just trying to listen how people feel about it. So we're listening to everybody in the emails and we're listening to everybody in person. And both sides, both the landowners and the other residents that would be impacted as well.
But it's not all based on education, though.
So we're going to move on. Does any other residents or landowners have any questions or comments? Okay, with that, we're going to close the public portion of it. And would you like to move to a vote or do we want to postpone to the next meeting? Okay, so we'll postpone to the next meeting. Okay, so then we're going to close the public hearing for now. And then we will move for a vote at the next town board meeting. Okay? Yes. Oh, sorry, Sue. Sue would like to add something.
We thank you for your cooperation and only one person speaking at a time and not speaking to the audience. Many people sent us, can you guys hear me?
No.
Okay.
Here, you want mine? Here's mine. Mine works.
Yeah, mine. Oh, Sing gave up. We thank, oh yeah, yours works. We thank everyone for listening and not interrupting everyone. We thank everybody for coming and sharing their thoughts. We received a lot of emails. We read the emails. I had an email from a resident who wanted me to read it tonight and it was way too long to read in 3 minutes. So I'll leave it at the front table should anybody wish to look at it. But please know that the decision that's before the board is a decision about the safety of all of the residents of the town of Estill. We work very hard to make sure that we can get the information, that we evaluate the information, and that we do what's best for everyone. And not everyone's going to be happy. We understand that. But we will put in the time and the energy to make sure that it's done right.
Okay, thank you. I also want to thank everybody for coming and for, stating your feelings on this matter. We will be thinking about it a little bit more. We have been listening to everything that everybody has said. And we will take a vote at the next board meeting. So thank you for your time this evening. Thank you for their comments. And do we need to?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
And seconded?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. And we adjourn. Thank you very much.
Okay, that's one thing. Does it work now?
They say. Hey, how are you? I'm doing well. How are you?
Good.
Yeah. Yep. Sorry. I don't think.